friends? Coming to you from the Spit Studios in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. This is the Spit Sports Show. It is time for some truth about Brock Purdy and what he actually is as a quarterback. Now, I've mentioned him in passing over these last few vids. The one I did on the San Francisco Niners versus Lions game, the one I did on the Super Bowl a couple days ago, but I've never really went in depth about my take on Purdy because you guys just lose your minds when I say he's the 13th to 15th best quarterback in the NFL, which in my opinion, is not a knock on him. Being the 13th to 15th best quarterback on planet Earth, like for a guy who was undrafted, a guy who has a story straight out of a Disney movie, like big round of applause. I have nothing but respect for Brock Purdy. I obviously have nothing but respect for his faith. I have nothing but respect for him as a person. But when I say he's the 13th to 15th best quarterback in the world, people take offense to this and they start throwing all of these stats in my face and his quarterback rating and this many passing yards and whatever. And it's just so fascinating because these eyes are football trained eyes. I watch a lot. And when I see him, I don't see a top 10 quarterback for sure. I definitely don't see a top 5 quarterback. So I wanted to see why. Why don't I see this top 10 potential, this top 10 currently? He actually has top 10 potential, in my opinion. I shouldn't have said that, but top 10 right now, there's just no way. This is the most fascinating quarterback controversy, debate, or whatever since Jimmy Garoppolo. So let's start right there. Who was the San Francisco 49ers quarterback before Brock Purdy was? Well, it was Jimmy Garoppolo, who it turns out is a bad quarterback. And I don't mean bad as in like, oh, fringe, like, he could start a couple games, but he's not winning. No, he's bad. He got benched for Aiden O'Connell this season. He got the coach who believed in him from the time he was first drafted in New England to the guy who brought him in the Raiders, Josh McDaniels. He's the one who wanted Jimmy Garoppolo, got him fired after 8 games of starting, and put up terrible numbers and threw some just horrendous passes when he still had Devontae Adams, Hunter Renfrow. He still had some weapons on that team and a very good running back in Josh Jacobs. Jimmy Garoppolo is bad. I think we can all agree on that. Not a good quarterback, not top 20, even close to that. I don't know where he's ranked, but he's not on the quarterback rankings. Bad player. So let's look at this bad player who everyone can acknowledge. Let's look at his 2 fully healthy years in this system in San Francisco. Now, I understand that the rosters are different. However, I would say that the roster with Brock Purdy should be better. You know why I say that? Because they almost immediately, once they got Jimmy Garoppolo, made him the highest paid quarterback in NFL history, which means he's eating up a lot of the cap. So you don't have as much money to spend in other places. Whereas Brock Purdy, like I said, was the last pick in the draft. He's making peanuts right now against the cap. So his roster overall is a little better. That's why you can go out and get a Christian McCaffrey. That's why you can go out and get a Chase Young. So his 2 fully healthy years in San Francisco, Jimmy Garoppolo, I'm not making any of this up. These are the numbers. 3,800 yards in 2021. 3,800 yards, 20 touchdowns, 12 picks, 99 passer rating. He went 10-6 and made it to the conference title game. Okay? So that's 2021. His second fully healthy year. His first fully healthy year in 2019. His first fully healthy year with this system. 4,000 yards, 27 touchdowns, 13 interceptions, a 102 passer rating, went 13-3 and went to the Super Bowl. Does that remind you of anybody? Because it reminds me of somebody, and his name is Brock Purdy, believe it or not. This year, 4,200 yards for Purdy, 31 touchdowns, 11 picks, 113 rating, and went 12-4. So there is a difference. Purdy had 4 more touchdowns. He had 200 more yards. He had 2 less picks, and his rating was, what's the math? 11 points better than Garoppolo's. But that is not a substantial gap between someone who I'm told is a top 10 quarterback and is the second coming of Drew Brees by some people, and a quarterback who everyone and their mom knows is not a tangible starting quarterback in the league in the same system. And I would argue the 49ers offensive weapons are just straight up better now. Because in 2019, Jimmy Garoppolo didn't have the best running back in the world on his team. He had Raheem Mostert, who's really good, but he's not Christian McCaffrey, and a couple other just guys. Jeff Wilson was the backup, and they're good players, but they're not Christian McCaffrey, let me tell you. And all I was thinking when I wrote this down that Jimmy Garoppolo didn't have Christian McCaffrey is what if he played like a sample size with Christian McCaffrey just so I could compare. Oh, wait, he did. He played with Christian McCaffrey, believe it or not, for 5 games. Over one of them, Christian McCaffrey only played 23 snaps, by the way, 29% of the offensive snaps. He played 5 games with Christian McCaffrey. Kind of 4, but 5. 245 yards per game, 10 touchdowns, 1 pick, and a 110 rating with Christian McCaffrey. Those are, I understand. That's a small sample size compared to what Purdy's done with him. Totally get that. But that's not shocking to you that in the 5 games that he played with the best running back in the world and the same weapons that Purdy's playing with now, he put up just as good, if not better numbers? What, 3 less in terms of passer rating, 1 pick to 10 touchdowns? Like, it's just interesting to me that we have this comparison and yet nobody looks at it. And so if this is what a bad quarterback can do with a roster and a play caller, like, are we really surprised that someone who I consider an above average quarterback is putting up slightly better stats? I'm not. Like, awesome. He's better than Jimmy Garoppolo. I totally concede that. He should probably put up significantly better numbers in this same offense. And speaking of this same offense, Kyle Shanahan's system is the most quarterback-friendly system that we have probably ever seen. Anyone who runs anything close to this West Coast offense now is called Kyle Shanahan-esque. Mike McDaniels nowadays, Matt LaFleur, they all come off that Shanahan tree. He's kind of the godfather of this new quarterback-friendly offensive wave we're seeing. He turned Matt Ryan into the MVP of the league, when he hadn't come close to sniffing that before or after Shanahan was his play caller. He doesn't get any credit for that. Like I just said, he brought Jimmy Garoppolo to a Super Bowl. This offensive system with Shanahan, man, it's just top tier. And it makes quarterbacks look great. It is like Joseph Marino. I don't know if you guys have seen this meme. It turns good players into great players and great players into champions. That's what Kyle Shanahan's system does. Okay, so listen, you can throw as many passer rating stats at me as you want, as many third down completions. I have to put this into context, guys. There's levels to this. And speaking of Kyle Shanahan, I want to stay on this branch for a second. He watches Brock Purdy practice every single day. Every day in practice for at least 3 hours. And before this season, he wanted to bring 46-year-old Tom Brady out of retirement to play for them. Now, it fell through. Brady didn't want to come back, blah, 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 this, that, and the other thing. We don't know fully what happened, but Shanahan confirmed, yep, we wanted Brady before this season. If you had Drew Brees 2.0 on your roster, do you really think you'd be looking to sign a 46-year-old? No. Flatly, you wouldn't. Listen, there are quarterbacks who raise the level of the players around them. And there are quarterbacks who are good in a system. They do everything right, but they don't do anything spectacular. They do everything good, but nothing great. Purdy falls into that category for me. And that's not a bad thing. Again, I don't want this to be a knock, but all of these people saying he's top 10 and a top 5 quarterback if he wins this Super Bowl just blows my mind. And his game changes so much based on the situation he's in, just like other quarterbacks like Tua and Baker, who I believe are in his class. And speaking of that, the 49ers have been remarkably healthy this year. They've been very lucky in terms of the injury bug. I know they've lost a couple pieces throughout the year, but overall they've been really good. But there were 3 games in the middle of the year where they lost 2 of their best players, the Avengers, as some people call them, the crew, like the Debos, the McCaffreys, the Trents, the Brandon Ayuks, the superstars on offense. They lost 2 of them. Trent and Debo both went out from week 6 to 8, okay? In that time, they played Cleveland, who had a really, really good defense, so I don't really hold that one against them. Tough matchup. Minnesota was the next game. Horrendous defense. One of the bottom 3 in the league. Nothing went well for them except towards the end of the season where they started to blitz more. But in the time Purdy was playing against them, they were the worst defense statistically in the world. And Cincinnati was their third matchup in week 8, 31st in yards allowed per game during the regular season, and 22nd in points allowed. So one really tough matchup and 2 cupcakes in this 3-game span where he didn't have 2 of his offensive weapons, 2 of his primary offensive weapons. How did he do when everything wasn't perfect for him, when he didn't have the best offensive weapons in football? In those games, he threw for an average of 254 yards. He threw for 3 touchdowns, 5 picks, and a 77 rating. Like, what do you want me to do about that, guys? Like, there's levels to this quarterback play thing, and it's not a knock. I think Baker Mayfield's a good quarterback. I think Tua is a good quarterback. I think Brock Purdy is better than a good quarterback. I think he's a really good quarterback. I put him slightly ahead of Tua. But if you put Tua on the San Francisco 49ers team today, you're telling me they wouldn't probably be in the exact same spot? I think they would. I don't like Miami this year. Probably the only reason they can go further is because they didn't have a pass rush because every single one of their rushers went down. Like Tua put up outstanding numbers. You don't see anyone claiming he's going to be top 5. He was top 5 in every stat this year. But people watch the game, so of course they don't make that debate. But with Purdy, because he's winning so much and because people like his story, they try to elevate him past what his talent actually is and how he's performing, when in comparison to these other quarterbacks who are doing more with so much less. And when it comes to 13th to 15th, you want me to name some players better than him? Okay, here we go. I'm going to rattle these off. Mahomes, Burrow, Stroud, Lamar, Allen, Stafford, Herbert, Goff, Rodgers, Lawrence, and Love are all clearly better. The only one in there who might be debatable is Goff, but like seriously, Goff's bigger, stronger, better arm, more accurate, done it with 2 different teams, taken 2 teams to conference championship games, took another team to a Super Bowl. Goff is better than Purdy is. Anyone who watches the games, I think, would agree with that. Stat me all you want, don't care. But the other 10 of those, I named 11 there. The other 10 of those are undebatable to me. And then you get into the debatables a little bit. I would take Jalen Hurts over Brock Purdy. I like his leadership more. I think he's more of a playmaker. I think he's improved as a passer every year, except he did take a bit of a slide this year. However, I think that was mostly due to Philly having the worst defense in the second half of the season out of any team in the NFL. So I'd take Hurts over him. I would take Dak. And I know he's not a playoff performer, but I think if you put Purdy on a Cowboys team that kind of has CeeDee Lamb and what else, I don't think he would have made it any further than Dak would have. And I think it's a coin flip between him and Kyler Murray. Kyler can make plays. Kyler's got a prettier arm. He can throw a better deep ball than Purdy can. Not as accurate, can't process information as well. That's a coin flip to me. So I just named, what was that, 13 that I would definitely take over him. So right, anywhere between 13 and 15. When I say it like that, comparing him to other quarterbacks, you're probably listening to this being like, yeah, he's not better than Mahomes. He's not better than Burrow. He's not better than Stroud. He's not better. But when I say 13th to 15th passively, everyone loses their minds. And I get it, but I don't. And I think the truth needs to finally be just acknowledged that Purdy is a system quarterback. And I'm not trying to say that as a bad thing. In the system, he's dang near perfect for what they do. But there are levels to this quarterback thing, guys, and we need to understand that. Purdy's really good, but he's not an elevator like some of these other guys are. 13th to 15th best is not supposed to be a slight. Some people take it as that. I don't care. I'm standing on this all day. And if he wins the Super Bowl, that doesn't change my opinion whatsoever. That might sound like a crazy thing to say, but if he wins a Super Bowl, do I think he's better than Jordan Love? I don't. Do I think he's better than Trevor Lawrence? I don't. Do I think he's better than Matt Stafford? Of course not. It's just so frustrating. Because when you really put pen to paper and look at what he's done and what other people have done in the system and with this roster, the truth becomes really clear. Anyways, thank you all so much for watching. As always, I want to know, am I nuts? Where do you have Purdy ranked in your quarterback rankings? Don't just say he's top 5. Tell me where he is, literally in your quarterback rankings in the comments below. Support on the show has been unbelievable. Super Bowl preview video just hit 3,000 views. We just hit 170 subscribers, which, like, genuinely, from the bottom of my heart, thank you guys so much for the support on the channel. Did I think it was going to happen eventually? Yes. Did I think it was going to happen this quickly? Absolutely not. And that is only because of you guys. Talk as much smack as you want in the comments. Tell me I did great. Tell me your thoughts. Please hit the subscribe button if you haven't already to join this wave before it becomes a tsunami. And I will see you in the next. Peace out.